Well, hello there, everybody. I wanted to make a quick video and answer a question that I get frequently about Ecclesiastes 1:9. Oftentimes, people will ask how we can interpret certain prophecies the way that we do if Solomon says there's nothing new under the sun. And they're taking this phrase from Ecclesiastes 1:9 and they're asking, how can you be so sure that, for example, Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21, how can you be so sure that those have been fulfilled in the past? And how do you know there's not some sort of a double fulfillment, that the whole thing is going to happen again in the future? After all, there's nothing new under the sun. Well, as you can see just from basic interpretation, this is part of a sentence. See, that's just part of a sentence. And this sentence is part of an entire thought pattern. And so we really have to go back and see, as we always talk about, the author's flow of thought. Who's talking? What's he trying to convey? Who's he talking to? And so forth. So we're going to go ahead and do that in this video. It won't be very long, I don't think, but we'll kind of work our way through from verse number 1 and work our way to verse 9. So this is Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse number 1. This is Solomon, the son of David. He identifies himself right here, and he's currently the king in Jerusalem. And he starts off by saying, vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. So a super uplifting message so far. He's basically saying everything is empty. When you hear vanity, kind of think of cotton candy. Cotton candy looks like there's substance, but as soon as you take a bite, you're going to say, where'd it go? There is no substance with cotton candy, although it looks like that. You ever have, I haven't had cotton candy since I was a little kid, but I can remember getting a giant bag of it, and you're like, man, this is going to last me forever. And you take a bite and it's gone. That's sort of what this word vanity means. It's empty. It might look like there's substance, but there's just nothing there. And that's what Solomon is trying to convey here, is everything in life is empty. Now, we're going to learn later at the end of this thing, he's going to kind of come full circle and he's going to talk about the meaning of life. So this is sort of like the setup to this is sort of the hook to his message, is that the emptiness of life. And he's going to get around at the very end to say that the matter of the whole conclusion is to fear God and keep his commandments. But for right now, he's setting up the idea that everything is pretty empty. So if you're around people that believe in Murphy's Law, if something can go wrong, it will go wrong. He's sort of speaking to that crowd. There's no point to life. And he's going to give examples of this. So here, his thought pattern, or we got to talk about the author's flow of thought. He's going to give you examples of the fact that everything's empty. In verse number 3, he says, what profit has a man from all his labor in which he toils under the sun? So, it's a question. He's trying to give you one example of how everything is empty. Well, what exactly does it profit you from working in an entire lifetime? Because after all, one generation passes away and another generation comes, but the earth abides forever. So that house that you're working so hard for to pay off, more than likely that house is going to be there and you're going to pass away and somebody's going to buy it from you or inherit it or whatever. The house will be there, but you won't. You're going to work hard for it, but you won't be there, but the earth will still be here. Well, okay, well, that's great for the people that inherit the house, but there's going to come a point where they also are going to pass away and that house will still be there. Unless the house falls down, somebody else will put up another one and that same tree will be in the front yard. And so he's using this as an example of what exactly does your hard work do for you? Well, now we know from other parts of the Bible, it is good to have a good work ethic and it is good to be a good steward of money. Solomon is sort of giving his a hook to try and get people to understand that without the fear of God, without keeping his commandments, life is meaningless. So it's a pretty doom and gloom sort of message so far. But the point here is, for our purposes, we want to know that he's trying to prove that everything is empty in life, of course, apart from the Lord. And he's doing that by using an illustration of hard work, because after all, you're going to die. Okay. Verse number 5, here's another example. What's another example of everything is empty? Well, here's another example. The sun is going to rise, and then guess what's going to happen? The sun goes down. And where did it go? Well, it goes back to the place where it arose. So there's some sort of a cycle to life. There's some sort of a cycle to your hard work and to generations being born and dying, being born and dying. The sun rises, sets, rises and sets. There's a cycle to life. There's a cycle to creation. So not terribly difficult to understand. And he's on the same path, this same train of thought here. Again, I could go a little bit slower and say he's trying to prove that everything is empty without the Lord. He's giving another example, the wind now. So he's talked about now your labor, because one generation dies, another one's born. He's talked about the sun. Now he's going to talk about the wind. The wind goes towards the south, turns around to the north. Well, all of the effort the wind just used to go to the south is now being used to go to the north. Well, is that contrary? Well, no. The wind whirls about continually. It's on a circuit. Okay, so even the wind has a sort of natural, repetitive nature. Getting up in the morning and going to work has a repetitive nature. Birth and death has a repetitive nature. The sun has a repetitive nature. The wind has a repetitive nature. Here's one more example. You notice that all the rivers, they run into the sea. Well, shouldn't they be empty by now? No, the sea's not full. Well, how's that? To the place from which rivers come, they return again. There's a cycle. This is called the hydrologic cycle or the water cycle. And you can learn more about that by just simply looking into what the hydrologic cycle is, or the water cycle. It has to do with the idea of the UV rays breaking up the molecules of the water, getting up to a cloud. The wind comes out of the treasuries of God, blows the cloud over the mountains. It rains. Then that mountain runoff gets eventually to the rivers, which go back again to the oceans. That's what sustains us. That's why the wind is so important. When we look in the book of Revelation and the angels have the power to stop the wind, it was a judgment on life. So important. So now we're using the rivers as an example of a repetitive nature. He says in verse number 8 that all things are full of labor. All things are full of labor. Man cannot express it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. In the same way that all things are full of labor, you're never going to get to a point of working where life says, you did it. Everything, listen, you're now such and such years old, and you have made your bed so many times, and guess what? You never have to make your bed again. It will just always be automatically made because you've made it so many times. I wish it was that way, but that's not the way it is. The second law of thermodynamics, this idea of entropy, all things tending towards disorder, and you're going to have to make your bed every morning. You've never slacked off and said, I can't believe this. What are the chances? The dishes just happen to get done. The trash is empty and just magically got out to the curb, No, everything requires labor. Just like, here's another example, your eye is not satisfied with seeing. You're never going to wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to keep my eyes closed all day. After all, I almost always open them, and they're, I don't even want to see anything today because I've seen my house. I've seen my kids. I've seen my grandkids. I don't need to see them. I've already seen them. No, you're going to want to see every single day, and that labor is going to be there of seeing. And here's another example of hearing. You're never going to be tired of that. You're going to have to see every day. You're going to have to hear every day. You're never going to tire of that. So we're looking at the idea of there's got to be a point to life. Am I going to get up every day, want to see, want to hear, see the same sun that goes up, goes down, just what? To die, and another generation takes my place. Boy, this is really, really looking kind of glim here. And so we're looking at generalities. We're looking at generalities of labor, generations dying, sun, wind, rivers, seeing, hearing. Now he kind of uses this as an illustration. That which has been is what will be. Well, what's he talking about? He's talking about cycles of life. He's talking about labor and death and birth and death and the sun and the wind and the rivers and labor and seeing and hearing. That which has been is what will be. He's pointing out that he's talking about cycles of life, of generalities. That which is done is what will be done. What's your point, Solomon? Are you trying to tell us how to interpret prophecy? No. He's talking about the idea of the sun coming up in generalities of repetition. And he says, and there is nothing new under the sun. Again, is that talking about a double fulfillment for the Olivet Discourse? I can't imagine a more irresponsible way to interpret the Bible than to take one sentence out of context, or one phrase out of context, not even a whole sentence, one phrase out of context, and pull it out like a fortune cookie and say that this has truth and merit because it's in the Bible. Therefore, I can take this one sentence and apply it and rip it out of context like a fortune cookie and take this little strip of paper out of my Bible and I can put it down on Matthew 24 or on Revelation. And if somebody can show you how a prophecy was fulfilled in the first century, like I have done in Matthew 24, Luke 21, Mark 13, and most of Revelation, I'm waiting for the second coming of Christ, so don't misunderstand that. But to say, oh, well, that may be one of its applications, but it's going to happen again because after all, there's nothing new under the sun. That is irresponsible. That is not what Solomon is talking about. And to say that is ignoring the immediate context. It's ignoring his flow of thought, and we do not do Bible study like that. So, this is what I always ask folks when they want to apply this to prophecy. Jesus was born in the first century. I think we can all agree on that. Well, actually, technically, he was probably born in 3 BC or 4 BC or something. But let's just say Jesus was born once in Bethlehem. I think we can all agree on that. Can we all agree on that? Jesus was born once in Bethlehem. Were there prophecies about his birth? Of course there were. Well, does that mean that if there's nothing new under the sun, that means he's going to be born again? Is Jesus going to experience a different birth through a virgin in Bethlehem again? I mean, are those prophecies going to be done again because after all, there's nothing new under the sun? Is he going to go to the cross again and die for our sins again and resurrect again and ascend again because after all, there's nothing new under the sun? Why don't you apply a double fulfillment sort of idea to those prophecies? Because that would be lunacy. I mean, at this point, we're just absolutely making things up, and we can't do Bible study like that. We have to do Bible study according to context and following the author's flow of thought. So Solomon is simply just saying here, he's making the case that without God, without following the Lord's will for us, life is empty. And he's showing these cycles of life. And in talking about these generalities, the capstone of that is saying that which has been is what will be. That which is done is what will be done. There's nothing new under the sun. He's talking about the cycles of life, not talking about prophecy. All right. I hope that's been a help to you. And if you have any other questions about that, please ask, and I'll try to clarify however I can. Thanks.